Hey everybody, this is No More Toxic People. I haven't made a video in a while, not a long while, but I had this subject in my head. I don't have a whole lot of time this evening, but the question is for everybody, did you ever see the narcissist cry? Or have you ever seen a narcissist cry? I was thinking about this. I was watching an old episode of Dr. Phil today. It was from a few years ago. I remember when it was first on. I remember watching it the first time. And it was about a man who had tried for a long time to get Dr. Phil to have him on his show. He had all this evidence against his wife. He had a 12-year-old son who he had turned against this woman. He treated this child like a man, like a friend. He confided secrets in this child about the mother and how she was cheating on him, which was not true, by the way, and how she had gotten chlamydia and passed it on to him, which was also not true. That she had given a false name to the doctor. So the drugstore had called the house asking for this fake person, telling them that they needed to come and pick up their medication for their STD, which was also not true. Now, if you give a fake name, you're not going to give your real phone number, right? I mean, does that make sense? So this man was telling the son, oh, these people that have called asking for this person, it's really your mom's fake name, yet she gave the real phone number. If you're sick, or if you have an STD or anything else, and you go to your doctor and they prescribe you some medicine, and you take the time to go to the pharmacy to drop that medicine off, or if that doctor calls that medicine in, you go and pick it up. He had this young child hating their own mother so badly. He gambled away $70,000 or $80,000 because he was a gambling addict. He lost all this money, and then after the horrible accusations and treatment against his wife for years, he had tried to convince her to go and draw out her retirement, her 401 or her retirement from her job to pay off his gambling debts and pay off their debts, and she wouldn't do it. And he had come up with some kind of an agreement that if she didn't draw that money out of the bank to help save their home, that he was going to put her out of the home, which didn't make any sense to me when I heard about it, because if you're going to lose the home anyway, why worry about putting that person out, you know? But he had this child convinced that if the mother didn't draw that money out of the bank and give it to him, that they were going to be thrown from their home, which wasn't the case. He wanted the money to pay off his gambling debts, to pay off the money that he had borrowed to gamble with. And he had videotape that he showed Dr. Phil that was supposed to benefit him, having his 12-year-old son screaming at the mother and calling her horrible names and accusing her of giving the father a STD. A 12-year-old child probably knows about sex and probably knows what an STD is, but they should not be talking about it in that way with their mother. If this was true in any way, shape, or form, it should have been something between this man and wife, not the child. This woman was beat down. She was dragged on this show. Dr. Phil said that he never looks at stuff that people send him in that capacity. If you did not contact his production team and you're sent a package to fill out about information, questions. You're interviewed by the production team and the staff. But this man kept after Dr. Phil so much that he finally took a look at the stuff the man had sent him. And he was not going to have this man on his show until he watched that video of that 12-year-old child screaming and saying horrible things to the mother at the beckoning of the father, at the pushing by the father. Now, of course, if you ever watch these types of shows, they do pre-interviews, and they do, like, the film crew will come into the home and they'll film little clips of the family, and they set up cameras and they have the family just go about their day and they film it. And this father, this production crew filmed this man pretending to be the world's greatest dad, the world's greatest husband and father. And the whole time he is on the stage accusing this woman, he wants this woman to confess to having had multiple affairs, which I don't believe this woman had any affairs. If she would have probably have been justified in finding someone and just leaving in the night and disappearing from these people's lives. And the only reason that she agreed to be on the show and to talk to Dr. Phil about this was because she wanted to save her relationship with her child. She wanted to save her son from growing up. And eventually the father will turn on the child. Eventually the child will do something or say something that the parent does not agree with, the narcissist does not agree with, and they will turn on them, and they will make them into the person that they, hang on just a second. Okay, sorry about that. My dog was barking. I thought I saw someone or a shadow or something. I'm paranoid because I have my curtains closed because it's so hot outside today. But anyway, eventually the parent would turn on the child, and the child would become the subject of the rage. Dr. Phil decides he's going to have an interview with this child. He doesn't show his face. He doesn't bring him onto the stage. He goes back into another room and interviews the child. The child hasn't heard any of the stuff that's being said on stage. The father making these horrible accusations, beating this woman down, confronting her. He thinks he's coming on Dr. Phil to confront her, and that Dr. Phil's going to jump up and pat him on the back and say, "Buddy, you're a good man. You've really called her out on her bullshit." And he thinks Dr. Phil is going to make this woman confess to something that she never did. And so he goes and interviews the kid, and the kid is just saying, my mom did this, my mom did that. Well, the son has been so influenced by the narcissist parent, the father, that he believes everything that he's being told. Now, the mother had left because she couldn't take it anymore. So she had been out of the home for about, I think at that point it was about 5 months. She had had no contact with her son other than a few text messages. And usually what would end up happening was the father would monitor their conversations, and he would start telling the son to provoke her, to ask her questions, and he would try to start the hatred up again between the child toward the mother. So now Dr. Phil goes off stage. He takes his wife off stage because he says to the audience, "I'm not leaving her out here on the stage with this man so that he can manipulate her while my back is turned. So while the cameras are not on them, he can sit there and tell her what to say and what, and just like continue this abuse toward her." So he takes her off the stage, and the man is sitting there on stage alone with the audience watching him. And suddenly he begins to cry, and he's bawling. And there are some tears, and you can see tears in his eyes. but you never see tears coming out of his eyes. He is so scared in that moment, as scared, he's feeling something a narcissist feels when they start to lose control. And in order for him to be thought of as the good guy and the one who's there to make this horrible woman confess her horrible sins, he has to continue this act. He can't jump up on stage and begin to rage and storm off, because that's going to prove that he's actually the one who needs the help. But he explained to this man what he is. He explained to him that he has a personality disorder, that he's a cluster A narcissist, that he is a dangerous person because he cannot admit that he's wrong. He believes the lies he's telling people. He believes his wife gave him, never said it, and I don't believe it, because this woman was so beaten down and abused and so just broken in spirit and just weak-hearted and just broken. That's the only word I can think of to use. I don't think that if she turned to someone else, it was in a moment of weakness and necessity of needing someone to comfort her. But I don't believe that happened. I believe it's all in his narcissistic mind. So Dr. Phil offered to send this man to a treatment center to get evaluated and to have like chemical tests, like blood work and MRIs and things of that nature, to find out if there was something going on medically. But Dr. Phil explained to him, that narcissism, which I don't know that Dr. Phil ever used the word narcissism. He used the word personality disorder. I would have to go back and watch that episode again to see if that word came up, but I don't remember, because I kept thinking that's what this guy is. And so in the wrap-up of this story, Dr. Phil asked this man, after all of this, after everything, he asked him, what do you want to have happen here today? And the man would not let it go. He wanted his wife to confess. That was his goal. That was all he was focused on. That was all he wanted. The tears, the crying and the moaning and the tissue to the eyes, and the pain coming from deep down inside of this man ended like that. And suddenly he's right back to who he was to begin with. And he wants her to confess. This is him talking up in her face. I want that confession. I want you to say it. I want you to admit it. You lied. You've been lying for years. And he went right back into everything that Dr. Phil had tried to do. So at the end, the narcissist was the same. But Dr. Phil offered him this, and I wonder because I don't know that there's been a follow-up to that episode. I'm going to look it up here in a little while and see what I can find out. But I wonder if he did go, because I believe the real goal here was to unite the parent and the child while this man was away. Because Dr. Phil, I think, had offered him to go for like 3 months or something. So I think the real goal Dr. Phil and his wife had was to get this man out of the way so that they could get this woman the treatment that she needed. That they could get her to a safe place, and that they could get her to where she could to gain some strength and power back, and to see and maybe to watch this episode from afar, and to watch him when she was not in his presence and the way that he behaved. And I hope and pray that this woman is no longer with this man. And I hope and pray that this woman and this child were able to mend that divide between them, because the child, 12 years old, And this had been going on for a couple of years, so this had probably been integrated into his psyche and into his mind from the time he was a small child. And he had probably been witness to his mother being abused and being berated and name-called and made to feel weak. Because in 5 months' time, the mother had been out of the picture and the father had had the child and was brainwashing him. So I hope that they were able to get that fixed. But it got me to thinking, that crying, that scene where he was crying. I remember one time with the narcissist, with my ex-narcissist, when I saw a side to him. There was a time later on after the hoovering started when I saw his mask come off. I remember just like it was yesterday. I was sitting on a couch having a conversation with him, and I'm telling him something that had happened, and I'm sitting right beside of him, and he's sitting like facing directly out, looking out, and I'm sitting kind of like up on the couch sideways, facing him, and he turns to look at me, and for just a moment I saw his true face. And I know people are thinking, well, they don't actually wear a real mask. Well, yeah, they don't, but if you get that, and I hope in a way you get the opportunity, in a way I hope you don't, because you see something that you've never seen before in that person. And it's almost like a real mask, because for just a minute, what it really is, and it's not a change to their appearance, it's that you see them looking at you with the knowledge that you know about them. Every time before they look at you, they're playing a role, and they're playing a game, and they're playing, they're playing some kind of like trick, and they're in control of it. But for a minute, they let that slip, and they see you looking back at them, and they know that you know. So their eyes change, their appearance changes, their demeanor changes, and it may be lickety-split and over, or it may hang around for a while, and you start to feel agitated and scared and shaky because you're looking at somebody you don't recognize. Or you may feel like, oh, aha, there it is, that's what I've been looking for. That's kind of what I did. It was kind of like, oh, there it is. I knew it. But that's kind of how I looked at that man on stage today. As soon as he shut the tears off, his face went back to no redness, no crying, no wiping away the leftover moisture from the tears. He went right back to that dark, evil mask wearing. And he was wearing the mask when he was fake crying. Everybody that... But I just remember this was when I was still kind of like in that relationship, and it was like ongoing before the devalue and the discard started. And I saw him kind of like tear up and look away in his face. And it was real, whether it was real acting or it was real, an actual moment where he had an actual something, emotional happen. I can't remember what we were discussing. I wish I could. If I sit and thought long enough, it'd probably come to me, but whatever it was. And it was just a moment. And it was an emotional exchange between real emotion, because even when we were like getting to know each other and beginning that kind of back and forth of starting to have feelings, or at least that's what I was under the impression was happening, that we were beginning to have feelings for each other. So we were beginning to like, kind of become more soft and intimate with each other. And I never really felt him being an emotional person. He would tell me that he cared about me, and he would say, I love you, but it was not like oh, I'm so in love with you. And it was like I saw him as just being a country boy, blue collar working type guy who didn't pour out his emotions. So when he wouldn't be really, really overly emotional, I kind of just played it off like that, because that's the way he was raised. I was raised a country boy, and not, you know what I mean, like a blue collar type, and I didn't expect him to be romantic, but he would do things romantic. He would hold my hand, and he would take my hand and kiss the back of my hand softly, and he would sing songs to me. When like some narcissists will, like this guy on the Dr. Phil show, will pour out this fake emotion. He didn't do anything like that. When he would get to a point when he saw that he was kind of not in charge, or he wasn't winning, or he wasn't ahead in the game, he would start to kind of like play that game of believe them or do what they want. I know one woman in particular that I could name, but I won't name this person, but I'll just say that she's very good at that game. I have one friend who I kind of see has some narcissistic tendencies inside of her, and when I see her, she's more like the cluster A, because she doesn't show. She'll kind of like tear up, and then she'll just turn and walk away, like she wants you to follow her, or chase after her, or give in to her. So we all know people like that. We all know people that are able to cry at the drop of a hat and to put on fake emotion to get what they want. Not all of these people are necessarily narcissists. Narcissists are good at that, but that doesn't necessarily make someone a narcissist because they do that. I don't know what I touched, something on my phone. Anyway, I just was thinking about that, and I was thinking about that moment in time with him. There were two real moments. And some people are probably going to hear this and say, you're crazy if you really believe that during that moment, that exchange or whatever it was, that it was real. It probably wasn't, but to me it was at that time. And when I think back to that moment, and like I said, I can't remember what we were saying to each other. I might have just been pouring out my dying love for this man, because at that time I was love bombed, and I did believe that I felt that way for him. And I believed that he felt the same about me. And I do remember that we were alone together, and I do remember that it was kind of a very passionate, I'm not saying it was sexual, I don't remember that exactly, but I do remember whatever it was very outpouring and emotional. And he showed a face to me of an emotional person. His eyes did tear up, and he did, kind of turn away and wipe his eyes. And like I say, it could have been an act, and it could have been fake. Or it could have just been that it was what he needed to do at that moment to play that game, to convince me that that's how he really was, and that's how he really felt. But anyway, the second real emotion that I seen from him was that day during the Hoover. This was probably about the second time that he had hoovered me, and I'd gone to talk to him, and I'm looking at him, and for the first time, and at that time, I don't think I really had learned about narcissism. At that time, I think that this was around the time that I kind of started to wonder about him and to think, what is it? What is this? Why does he behave this way? Why does he act and say and do the things he does? And I think it was probably around that time that I kind of started to Google stuff and start looking up stuff, because it wasn't long after that I did stop talking to him and going to see him and spend time with him, because once I started figuring it out, I wasn't trying to be one of those people that was like going to meet up with the narcissist to try to, ha ha, I got you now, you know. I just, but I do remember that day on the couch, whatever. I remember the conversation we were having, and I remember what I had said to him. I don't remember word for word, but I do remember him looking at me. He had just told me something that I knew to be a lie. Because we were talking about someone who I was friends with, that he knew, and he had said something about this person, and I knew that it was not right. I knew it was fake. I knew he was making it up. And I looked him right dead in the eye, and he knew right in that moment that I knew. And it's not like when somebody typically gets caught up in a lie. You can catch somebody in a lie and look at them dead in the face, and they won't show. They will not give up that they're lying. Or if some people are not able to lie because they'll start to grin and laugh. That's the way I am.